Hello and welcome back to the Fencing Referee YouTube channel. My name is Lisa Campi-Sapri. Please subscribe to this channel and that will help me. I can also be found on thefencingref.com. Today's module is going to be about the habits and the routines that we have. And they're really vital to making sure you kind of get it all done and you don't have to be overthinking or over worrying. The very first module we did was about confidence, and one of the things that gives you confidence is to have a comfort in what you're doing. And once you create these habits, you will be feeling like you will be able to get it all done in a calm way. Now, we all have habits when it comes to checking in a pool. We had a module on that already. And checking in a DE is very similar. You got to make sure they've got all their stuff. Before we start about, we're going to have habits and routines. For example, when I test a foil, I'm not just putting the weight on top. I'm making sure that the tape looks good, right? When I test foil, and we're going to do some foil specific modules and some epee specific modules and some saber specific modules. When I'm testing that foil, I'm also kind of glancing down to make sure that I can see the alligator clip. That's a habit I have. I'm looking for the alligator clip because it's on that side. It's on the correct side because it's not allowed to be on the other side. I have a habit of looking inside the guard of a foil or an epee to make sure that it's got a fastener, and to make sure in epee land that it's got all the right things, that it's got the insulation and all that, and the fastener and all that stuff. In saber, the primary thing I'm looking for in the test is that they're pulling their mask away so that when they're hitting the mask, I'm also checking that cord to make sure that the mask cord is working. These are habits. You then say probably what? Salute mask on guard. That's a habit. That's a routine. Salute mask on guard. On guard. Are you ready? These are things that help. While I am walking back to start my on guard ready, I will say things like 2-3 is on deck, 2-3, please prepare. Mr. 2, Mr. 3, you're next. Something like that. That's another habit or routine that I have. During a bout, I'm moving with the action, right? But I'm also looking for safety issues that can happen. I'm looking for prevention of cheating. When you're driving a car, you're kind of in a constant state of attention. And that's an important habit for refereeing, right? Another thing that I know a couple people do, which is a fabulous thing, is, and I'm going to step back, is they go on guard and they do a little glance. Are you ready? Fence. And they do a little look. It's a little perusal to make sure that everything is safe. Nobody's put a mask at the very end of the strip, because sometimes in these clubs, people put stuff in the wrong places, and maybe somebody put a foil or an epee right at the back of the piece, and that's a safety issue. They do a little glance. You're always watching the person who got hit. This is really important, I think more so in foil and an epee, because you're making sure that they're not changing the system. They're not fiddling with their guard, or they're not tightening something. These is because, you could be, if you're not watching the right person out of habit or routine, they could change the system, and then an annulment. There could be an issue with an annulment. Another incredibly vital habit is what happens when you give a card. Well, you have to write it down. You have to write down it on the score sheet. If you don't write it down, it's like it never got documented. It's like it never happened. When I am 4 bouts from the end of a pool, I will remind the fencers, guys, just remember, or ladies, depending on who they are, check and sign the score sheet. I always say check and sign it. And honestly, that is a rule for life. It is not just for this bout sheet. The referee's got to sign it too. That is a classic thing in DE sheets. Signature not legible is a pain to bout committee, so make sure you're signing that score sheet too. And at the end of a bout, you probably, sometimes people are really excited, you have to, what's the habit, what's the routine? At the on-guard line, please salute and shake hands. These are habits and routine that need to be ingrained in you. Because the one time you don't start a DE bout and you say, where's your extra equipment? is, and I said this recently while reffing saber, guy did a parry riposte, broke his saber. And I was the only referee in the room who was checking to see if he had extra stuff. And he looks at me very, as he gets his second weapon, that I made him get. So having the extra stuff is important. Checking the equipment. Sometimes the Saber DE, sometimes checking all the stuff that the Saber DE has, the mask, the over, blah, blah, blah. It takes longer than the bout, than the 15-touch bout. But you've got to have habits to check all of these things. An important habit is watching the person who is the loser. I briefly went over this, the victory challenged, politically correct. You watch them, and you watch them until they leave the area. You watch them until they unhook, because in any of the 3 weapons, once they unhook, they lose rights to protest a touch, correct? So you are at the very least watching them. My habit structure is I walk over to them, to the person who lost, and I make them sign the direct elimination score sheet. Because I want to give them, they've got to master their anger. We've talked about that a little bit. But I want to give them an opportunity to go away and be upset somewhere else so that I don't have to card them. But then I take my DE sheet and I call the winner over and I say, is the V by your name? And that habit has saved me a lot of problems. Because sometimes left, right, sometimes the first name call goes on the right, but if it's a lefty, the lefty goes on the left. I prefer that, like I said, even except for team events, I pretty much still want that lefty on the left. Sometimes it's 2 lefties. They don't know which side to go to. I tease lefties because the first name call goes on the right. Is the V by your name? As a habit has saved me a lot of problems. So these are critical so that you're writing down the right things, you're writing down the cards, you haven't flipped the score on a direct elimination. Check and sign the score sheet at the end of a pool. The people who are maybe new to fencing, or they see that a bout has been flipped on the score sheet, having these words and these habits that you do all the time are going to save you a lot of problems. Also, having these habits can change you from one level to the next level up. Because once you have these habits and routines that you do all the time, people will see that you're professional at what you're doing and that you are taking the effort to pay attention to the vital things so that you're not messing up. The best referees have messed up score sheets. The best referees have flipped DEs because the people didn't hook up on the correct side, or they sometimes, we're human, we just make errors. But the habits of doing things in a routine of always walking to that bout sheet, circling that yellow card, and then walking back on guard ready. These are the habits that are going to save you a lot of problems in the long run. Habits and routines, important. You know, it's going to save you a lot of trouble. Maybe comment below and tell me, maybe there was a habit that you do that you know is fantastic that I didn't mention. I'd love to hear it. Thank you so much for watching the Fencing Referee YouTube channel. I appreciate your comments. I appreciate your compliments. I appreciate your help about trying to figure out what else we need to do. Thank you, and don't forget to subscribe.